this chunk is dedicated to make your sound dirtier, putting effects, create something that is a little bit more complete and professional sounding. Let's call it this way. We're first gonna look the little effects that we can do inside the synthesizer. For example, we can use the LFO to make our sound dirty. We can use the noise to make our sound dirty. Of course, we can use distortion and drive. And after we've seen that, we can move on and have a look at the insert, EQ, compression, just briefly, of course. And then a little bit of layering and all that sort of stuff. So this is going to be more of a post-production slash enrich your sound part of this class. Now, as I said, let's start from the actual synthesizer. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is the noise. You've seen me working on the noise only for this type of effects. Let me bypass all this stuff. Okay, this kind of a whoosh sound that we can use for effects and stuff like that. Truth is, the noise, in my opinion, is one of the most important thing in your synthesizer, because it can really bring our sound alive. It can take it to a whole different level. It can add a lot of harmonies because, of course, noise has all the harmonies in the spectrum. So you can imagine what it can do to our sound. However, it has to be added and used quite carefully, because otherwise it can really destroy your sound. But let me do a quick example of what it can do. Now we have our super simple init sound, and let's start with bass. Let's get another oscillator, put it an octave lower, maybe make it mono so it's not gonna. All right, and let's filter it down a little bit. Okay, now we have our sound, and it doesn't sound good at all. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we can do to it. Well, we can crank up the drive and crank up the distortion. Also, let's make sure that the volume is turned down quite a notch, because distortion and drive increase the volume a lot. And yeah, the sound is already much better compared to this. It's brighter, it's more aggressive. And it definitely sounds better. If we put the resonance up a little bit, we can have it a little bit more sparkly. But what if we use the noise as a third oscillator? And as I said, we really have to go careful with it. I wouldn't go like more than 8%. All right, so with the filter completely on, let's turn down the resonance, as this one is going to brighten up the sound quite a lot. Let's close it for a second. This is what we have. As soon as I bring in the noise, you can still how this you can hear how the sound is much dirtier. And if I put my envelope, we still have this nice bass, but we have this kind of grittiness on the top that is given by the noise. That helps us making the sound much more aggressive. Now let's maybe turn down drive and distortion, and here you can hear it even better. Our sound is really dirty, but it still sounds pretty good. And as soon as we get rid of the noise, it sounds way too simple and way too clean. And I mean, I know that a lot of people talk about having a clean song and a clean sound. Yes, that is true, but usually is more of a mixing kind of thing rather than a sound itself. People usually want a dirty sound. That's why there's a lot of tape simulation plugin, tape emulation plugin. That's why people use a bit crusher, distortion, and all that kind of stuff, because it's usually quite nice to saturate or have the sound a little bit dirtier. Also, this is a completely different subject, but a lot of people will tell you, a lot of older people will tell you that the vinyl used to sound much better and has a certain warmth that the CD or the MP3 doesn't have. That's partially true. However, for a physical reason, the vinyl has way less frequencies than a CD. So a CD will have a much higher quality in terms of frequency response compared to a vinyl. The vinyl, however, does sound warmer, mostly because we usually hear also the artifacts of the needle scratching or anyway surfing on the vinyl itself, and that creates other harmonies, and that kind of pleases us. But that doesn't mean that the music is actually better. In this case, the CD has the highest quality compared to the vinyl, because we have much more frequency response. We have a wider spectrum of the sounds that we can have. However, the sound of the vinyl has more, let's call it, color. And this is why, even in this case, even for the synthesizer, we want to add some kind of artifacts or noise or distortion, just because we can add some color to the sound. And once again, let me show you. It's a decent sound, but it lacks a little bit of character. And as soon as I bring in the noise, all right, it has much more character. It's much grittier. It's kind of much more in your face as well. It has way more power, and I think it's literally just better. This is why we have noise on our synthesizer, because we can add the little bit of sparkle that enriches our sound quite a lot and makes it a little bit brighter. It makes it a little bit more aggressive eventually, especially if we have distortion and drive afterwards. And yeah, it just completes and gives that extra frequencies to our spectrum that helps a lot with completing the sound. Now let's have a look at something else where we can see we can have our noise on a lead. Actually, lately, a lot of producers are using a simple saw wave like this one with just a little bit of noise. Maybe this is already too loud. But you can tell that the sound is a little bit more pleasing. It's not as dry as it would be just by having a simple saw. You know? And that's why I was telling you have to be really careful with the noise. Because you just want a little bit. You don't want the noise to be noticed. You want the noise to be there, but as soon as you start noticing it too much, well, then maybe that's too much noise. You want it to sit there. You want it to complete your sound, but not to be something that goes over it. So that's why I'm literally using like 9%, but it still makes a difference. You know what I mean? And it's also really helpful for detuned leads. All right, let's try and bring it in a little bit. And without. We can crank the detune a little bit by detuning both. You notice how the sound kind of is empty if there's no noise. It fills up the spectrum. It fills up that holes that are two oscillator on their own are leaving, and completes the sound a little bit. Let's try having that proper unison. Maybe let me put down the volume. This is at this point is already way too loud in my opinion. So maybe let's put it at 5. Still quite loud. The difference is so tiny, but at the same time it's so big in my opinion that yeah, this is why I'm a massive fan of the noise. And then of course we can use it for pads as well. And the noise in this case helps us smoothing the sound quite a lot. And this is quite crazy as we've seen in the previous example where we were using it for the bass, that the noise was helping us making the sound more aggressive, while in this case with a pad it would help us making the sound smoother. Well, this is because first of all, we're not using the distortion, and the pad sound is already something kind of lush, so the noise goes along with it. While with the bass, we already had a little bit of grittiness, as we were already low in tone, so we would have we could hear the oscillation much more, and the oscillation kind of go and clash with the noise, and this makes the sound a little bit grittier. So let's in this case we can have a little bit more noise. And let's maybe 17. That's probably too much. Let's go back to 13. Let's play it without. With. It helps us kind of smoothing out the sound a little bit. For our leads, let's say it's kind of helpful to make the lead a little bit more, a little bit fuller and richer. For the bass, it makes it grittier and it gives us that little sparkle. Well, for the pad, it makes it smoother and kind of richer as well. But it just sounds really good, and it pretty much, as if you can get the right balance, it always sound like it's part of the actual sound, and that's the trick. That's what I was trying to explain you a few minutes ago. Is the noise basically is a support of your sound. It can make a lot of difference if it's a support for the sound. If it's another oscillator stacked over your sound, brutally stacked over your sound, in that case it's just gonna sound like a mess, and you don't want that. You want your track and your sound to be clean but dirty at the same time. I know it's kind of a hard concept to get, but always try to find the right balance with everything. It's pretty much the same concept of, you know, cranking up the detune on the oscillators. It won't sound good if it's too detuned, unless you want something really detuned on purpose. But normally it wouldn't sound too good if it would be completely detuned. So you always have to be a little careful. So you just don't go crazy with detune or the volume on the noise, or, you know, the resonance. Those are all stuff that can really make the difference, or can really destroy your sound if you use them with exaggeration. I hope the concept of noise and how to use it, it's clear. You really have to experiment this one, but maybe let me try and do a few more examples, maybe with some more basses. That classic UK bass that we've seen. Okay, we have the sound. It's pretty basic. Let's maybe just put a little bit of drive and distortion. It's definitely too much. All right, and now let's pick our noise, bring it in. Hear the difference it does, right? The sound, just with one oscillator, just with noise, the sound gets so much more complete and complex. And it also has this analog feeling to it, you know, like an old synthesizer that has something, maybe the converters are kind of defective, and then it has this noise passing through, but it's not a bad thing. You know, the sound has definitely much more character, which is what the noise is all about, and the whole sound design is all about, is giving character to the sound. This is what I tried to teach you from the start, from the beginning of the video. Basically everything that we see here, the LFO, envelope, noise, drive, everything is used to give character to our sound.